Welcome to Becoming Parents podcast. I'm Jen Taylor, your host. I am mom of 18, and you can find me on momsrunningit.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive right in.
Welcome to Becoming Parents. I'm the host, Jen Kimball, and I am with Mark Aylward today. How are you, Mark?
I'm well, Jen. How are you?
I'm very well, and you're grammatically correct. Nicely done. We're both well.
Thanks for having me.
I am excited to have you on. I don't get more excited, I think, to have men on than women, but it is a lower percentage. So I think that that's exciting. And you have things in your story that I really want listeners to hear about. I think it can make a substantial difference in their lives. I'd love for you to jump in and start talking about how you became a parent.
Yeah, as I was thinking about that when you asked me earlier, I think I would go back to my childhood. I think because I remember the night that I found out my girlfriend was pregnant, who became my wife and the mother of my three children, and then my ex-wife. I just remember feeling so blissful at the news, in spite of the circumstances. All I remember is I'm going to be a dad, and yeah. It was in a very emotional moment. It's something I've always wanted to be. And so I wasn't considering any of the circumstances or the propriety of it all. I just knew I was going to be a dad. So I think that goes back to my childhood, and it's because of the relationship I have with my own father, who's a great dad. So I could talk about that for the rest of the day. But those are the things that kind of rush through my head when you ask me that question. Where did it all start? And then it's a journey, right? And anybody who's a parent knows it's a journey. And so let me know where you want to go from there, Jen, but there's all kinds of places I can go from there.
I think I'd like to ask, since you went back to your dad, you're one of four kids. Am I correct in that? One of four in the middle.
Second child. Yep.
Okay. And so a lot of responsibility, but not the onus of the oldest.
Yeah, no, I was just talking to my older brother the other day, and he's a powerful guy, man. It's so interesting. My ex was the eldest in her family as well. That's a daunting task, and you don't really know that it's going to be daunting, but he just takes care of stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff.
Yep. I'm the oldest. Yeah.
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 So you know
different.
what I'm talking about.
And my daughter, that's the oldest, very different. And I know sometimes I've looked and thought, I'm glad that she's the one, her personality, the type of human being she is. I'm glad that she was tasked with that job, even though I'm also sorry. Like, sorry, you know. So
yeah, no, I get it. My eldest is the glue in our family as well. My eldest daughter.
yeah,
She gets the stuff done. She takes on the responsibility before anybody else even brings it up. You know.
I'd like to ask you what things about your dad, what lessons, and also, like, if you were super aware of this before you became a father, because I think we're aware, but then we're like hyper aware when we're parents of whatever example we had, that we want it to be different or we want to emulate it. What do you think are some of the best things that he passed down to you for your own parenthood journey?
Yeah, I've answered this question before, and I used to say, what did I used to say about him? I used to say about my kids, I treated them like they were adults from very young age. But I don't think that's the proper way to say that. I think it's like he treated me with respect, like as far back as I can remember. He didn't put himself on a pedestal. He was like, he wasn't a peer because I adored him and I looked up to him and I respected him, but there was no gaga goo goo stuff. I never did that with my kids either. I started talking to them in plain English at a very young age, and I think that's big. I think that's big.
It's hard to balance out not being a peer with your kids. I never talked the gaga goo goo stuff either, so I get that. But having them look up to you and having that respect and parenting. I mean, parenting your kids, disciplining your kids that's a tough thing to do sometimes, to be not their equal. You are not their equal. you're not their friend, and get that respect. I know lots of parents struggle with that balance. So you found out you're pregnant. Well, you found out your girlfriend was pregnant at the time. You married her and had 3 kids because you shared
Mhm,
that. Tell me what
mhm.
parenting was like for you. Was it you said something about it on your website, on your about information, your immaturity, ignorance, and always wanting to be a dad were the 3 things that made you excited about it. And I mean, those are good things, right? So
Yeah.
what was it really like? Because it is all of the glowing, wonderful, beautiful things you think it is, and also it's hard.
Yeah, well, when we first got married, there were 10 or 12 good years, and we made a ton of progress. I was very successful, she was very successful. The kids were great, getting good grades, behaving properly, ticking off all the boxes, playing sports, extracurricular activities. But then it started to get challenging, and when the communication started to break down and then disappear, it got really hard. And long story short, after I think it was 6 or 7 different judges over the course of somewhere between 7 and 10 years, to the tune of a couple $1 million, I got custody, and only when I started to represent myself. And the 7th judge was a relatively young woman, and she was the first judge that when I looked at her, I thought, she gets this. She's only interested in the best interests of the children. And up till that point, it had just been domestic nonsense, just unbelievably ridiculous circumstances. But so when you say, what did that look like, or what was it like to be a parent? I went from being a dad with a helper called mom to mom and dad. And but it's life comes at you. You can just the only way to lose is if you quit, right? You keep going, you figure stuff out, So it was there were a lot of different moments in that journey that created in me having my kids when they were mid-level teens to, I think, 12 to 17, something like that. So, but again, that's a long story with lots of funny moments, lots of heartbreaking moments. And if you want to go in a specific direction, take me there, Jen, because it's a book, you know.
I went through a really, really rough divorce also, and I also ended up representing myself. And I remember there was stuff in court like I shouldn't have custody because I wore a bikini on my Facebook page. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, what a colossal waste of time. I'm in court 3 or 4 times a year, and I got primary custody of all of my kids. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy the stuff that comes up and how absolutely exhausting it is and
Yeah.
ridiculous it is, and just draining, not just financially. I mean, yeah, financially, but in every other way in your life. And
Yep.
it's not in the best interest of the kids. It is
Mm-mm.
absolutely not in the best interest of the kids. It took years and years for me to get it done also. And that's hard. It's hard. I understand that. Anybody who's gone through it has understood that. In the meantime, while all that was happening, you were going back and forth, correct? Because you got sole custody.
I did. I got sole custody at the end, but there was 50-50 for a while.
Hmm.
I was walking through metal detectors to pick up my son, and getting searched by police. And there were 3 domestic violence injunctions that were completely fabricated that took my children away from me for about 6 weeks at a time. You can't talk to them or get near them when you're out on one of those. And they all were dismissed immediately when we got into court because they were foundationless. But yeah, the challenges in that, you just keep getting up. And thank goodness I played a lot of sports, because I was used to getting knocked down and getting back up again.
I think
But
no matter what the situation is, I remember looking and being, people are like, "You're so strong," and I was like, "What's plan B?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
this isn't what I want to be doing.
right.
And yeah, you're right. I'm strong, but part of that is because of this situation,
Hmm.
insert situation here, not just the divorce, and that, like, what's the alternative? Was there a plan B I didn't hear about? Like, you just
Yeah,
have
no,
to move
that's
forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's, when I talk to people about careers and professional stuff, it's like there's two roads. One is to continue to get better and the other one is to get bitter, right? And
Hmm.
that was never a choice for me. I looked over there and I'm like, that's not, no. I only have one choice, and that's just to keep trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
So that's what I did. And the challenge is, as one of the big ones is, not talking disparagingly about the other parent, regardless of how you feel, because that is definitely not interest in the best interest of the kids. And
Yep.
unfortunately, she did that all the time. And I
Yep.
think I did a pretty good job of not doing that. Probably could have been better, because sometimes you just get a little lazy and feel a little down on yourself and you let one go. But no, I kept that in mind the whole time. But
I did also, and you're right. There are times that it wasn't perfect. There are also times where, yeah, I mean, you're saying the least bad thing in that situation too, where I felt like, geez, I mean, I could say a lot of stuff, but this is the least bad response to that,
yeah.
and it's not great. It can be really challenging. All of my kids, except for one, are adults, and so it was interesting how the conversation shifted when they were. I don't feel like they were always unfiltered with me,
Mm-hmm.
but it shifted when we were both adults. And I said, you know, now that you're an adult, we can have a different conversation. I still don't want to talk badly about him, but I don't need to represent in court. Like, we can have a much more adult and honest conversation now than
Yep.
we could when you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And that they've been really funny. They've been really
Mm-hmm.
hard. Um, I've apologized for any parts you could have done better, but I mean, definitely that's a great advice to give, is like, do everything at all costs, do not talk badly about the other person.
Yep.
That's what happens in the courtroom, and not with your kids. Talk to me about so you're raising 3 kids,
Mm-hmm.
splitting custody through part of this. You said you were already successful with before the divorce, but you've done some pretty outstanding things all individually. Sole custody of your kids as a man that's not in his 20s right now,
Yep.
because the world for us, I was born in 70. I know we're similar in age. Um, and back then when it was worse for men than I think
Mm-hmm.
it is now. So that was exceptional. Um, you have also sold 2 companies at
Mm-hmm.
$3 million each. So you were raising kids while building $1 million companies and selling them. Take me through the companies.
Yeah, well, when I got sole custody, that was at the tail end. I actually had to sell the second company under, I guess you'd call it duress, because she was doing things to me and to the business, interfering with it, uh, just to mess with me, and it became kind of a pressure cooker for my partner, one of them.
Mm.
And so we had agreed way back in the day when we started, if one of us ever wants to get out of this, we either buy you out or sell the company and split the proceeds. So he basically said, I can't take this anymore. And I'm like, sorry, dude, that you feel that way, but I get it. And so I sold the company with him. And then my court journey continued. But the first company I sold, I was a minority owner in, and that guy was my mentor. And we worked together for about 5 years, and he taught me everything there was to know. And one of the things I talked to people about, young or old, is the value of finding a mentor. And we clicked. He was a brilliant guy, and he basically funded the organization, told me what to do, and I did all the stuff. So that's when I started learning about hiring people and training people and operations and banking relationships and attorney relationships and accounting relationships and operations and recruiting and sales, and became a sales leader and a recruiting leader. And yeah, I was ready. When he sold the company, he split. He didn't stick around to manage what he sold. He just left, took his money, cut me a big fat check, and I became the regional manager of the acquiring organization on a 12-month contract. And 3 months into that, I knew I can't work for these people. I can't work for somebody else. I got to do this on my own. So I picked up the phone and I called a good buddy of mine. We'd started out in the recruiting business together, worked together for 3 years. and said, let's do this. And he said, I'm so glad you called. I'm ready too. Let's go. And we were
Oh,
profitable. Yeah, we were profitable quickly because we had all the tools, and we were willing to do the work. So
that's amazing.
yeah, it was fun. And it was I think we did 2 million in the first year, and then 4 million, 8 million, 11 million. And then we coasted there through the .com bubble. Had some difficult times with collections for a while because we were in the software space. Got through
Okay.
that, and then things started to fall apart with me personally, and that's when that fun began.
I mean, just the fact that you did all of that and you said the word fun in the midst of that, because you also said the dirty word that makes me cringe. And every time I hear it and I cringe, I think, what is a problem? And that's sales,
Mm.
the dirty 5-letter word. I know, like everything, I'm a doula. I'm selling myself all the time to
Mm-hmm.
clients, to
Mm-hmm.
speaking engagements. Like sales is part of what we do every single day, no matter what. And some of it feels really innate and some of it feels a little car salesy. And it's differentiating for me. It was differentiating, first learning you're selling yourself every single day,
Yep.
in every conversation. And the other thing is like, and that doesn't have to feel like a used car salesman in the 70s.
No.
So, but you said the word fun, and starting a business and fun in the same sentence, and sales all in
Uh,
the same sentence. Yes.
it makes me think about because both of my daughters are have successful online businesses. One of them helps women with body image and
Oh,
weaves yoga in there, and she's a film producer as well, so she's very creative. And then my second daughter's in the nutrition space, and I remember them now coming to me talking about selling. Dad, I don't want to sell. I can't sell. I hate sales. And they're both killing it now. And so
yeah.
I think it's a mindset shift. I think from, I've never called myself, well, that's not true. I call myself a sales guy all the time, but I feel more like an educator. I feel more like a
Yeah.
mentor. I feel more like I just got to find people that need what I have and are
Yeah.
ready to listen to someone like myself, and my message resonates with them for whatever reason, my worldview, my tone of voice, the fact that I'm a man, the fact that I'm a middle-aged man, Irish Catholic, who knows what's going to click with whomever. And they need what it is that I have. And I'm just like, well, this is what it is. Let me just tell you what it is. And if you're ready for it, this is what it costs. You want to get started, or should we wait? It's
Right.
I think it's really finding people that are predisposed to what you already have and just telling them in a compelling manner without misleading them what it is, and what they can expect from a transformative experience, for lack of a better phrase. So once you shift to that mindset, you don't feel sticky anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you love what you do, I haven't loved what I've done every job that I've had. Some of them it was someone else's dream that I was supporting, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when you realize that, okay, well, this is just me supporting someone else's dream, they're passionate about it. I'm a supporting role off in the wing, right? And that's a lot different than having your own business. And that should be something that you really, really love. And when you love it, you're right. You only want to sell it to the people that want that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you love it. So your passion, I think that really shows in
Yeah.
how you have a conversation, and also knowing that like every pregnant woman is not my client. You
Right.
have to be a pregnant woman to be my client, but not every
Mhm.
pregnant woman is my client. And
That's right.
so
That's right.
it's figuring out that balance. What did you do? First of all, when the court stuff was finally over, how were your kids? My kids were relieved. I still went to
Yeah.
court after that, but my kids were relieved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember the final court date with the young woman, the judge, who was a young woman, relatively young woman, maybe late 30s, early 40s, not yet jaded by the
Yeah.
domestic court system like all these old dudes were. Like, we've seen it all before. They didn't care at all. But my daughters both insisted on testifying. And, I think my eldest at the time was just turned 18. And so that would make my other daughter like 13. It was something like that. Some of this stuff gets blurred over the
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
but, And I was adamantly opposed to it until such time as they were obviously young adults, to your point earlier.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen on a day. It happens over a period of time, and you finally wake up and say, wow, that was a whole different conversation right there. I'm talking to an adult now, And so I said, okay, this has got to come to an end. This is ridiculous. And if it's coming in there, let's go. And I remember when my eldest daughter, they opened the door to the courtroom and she walked in and she put her hand on the Bible and she didn't get 2 words out of her mouth. She just started bawling. And her mother didn't even look at her. And I looked at the judge look at my ex and look back at me. And I thought, I just won. She gets it. And so she said to me, the judge said, is this what you want? And I said, no, Your Honor, I don't want any of this. I want this to come to an end. That's what I want. My daughter's insisted on coming because of how ridiculous this has been for such a long period of time. And my daughter was able to leave. I suggested that she leave. She had done what she came for. She wasn't aware of it yet, but
Right.
she'd gotten what she came for, just in a alternative fashion because of her emotions. And I remember walking out of that courtroom. I almost fell down. I had to grab the railing. I was so emotionally shot, but yeah, relief, celebration. Yeah. We all went out for dinner. My brother was there. I had some friends there that were witnesses, and we celebrated.
Yeah. It's a really hard road, and the kids know it. Even though, like my kids weren't in court, they asked to talk to the judge also. They did it, some of them did it in a private room. They didn't testify. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, I'm representing myself. I'm being dragged into court 3 or 4 times a year. CPS is involved. Like when is this going to be done? And my kids really, they were like, we're done. And they weren't even, I didn't tell them when court was coming up. I didn't tell them how stressed I was to go to court. I didn't tell them how exhausting it was. I'm sure you can only hide so much, but they didn't even know what days I was in court or not. And still they felt all of that strain and wanted it to be over. What did you do when that was over for business? Because somewhere in that divorce, you sold that second business, and then what?
Yeah, well, the skill set that I have allows me to help anybody that's contemplating professional change, no matter what that means. It's a pretty broad skill set, but I can get very specific in the multiple lanes within the skill set. So when I helped my eldest daughter find a job, I think it might have been out of high school. Maybe it was after college. Dad, I got to find work. What do I do? How do I do this? And I took her through the series of events that I would take anybody through. And she said to me after it was over and she had a job making more money than she thought she was going to make doing something she really wanted to do. Dad, you got to get this in front of more people. You have a set of experiences and knowledge that no one else is teaching out there. And that kind of got me thinking, maybe I could just coach this stuff, and that will allow me to get to the volleyball games, get to the volleyball practices, get to Little League, get to soccer practice, go to the teacher meetings. I became a nomad with a laptop, just trading time for money. And I spent all of that time. I took a pretty significant financial hit, but I was also becoming a minimalist because the kids were getting out of the house, and all those big expenses that children incur are kind of almost behind me. So I'm like, let's strip it down and let's just go nomad. And that's what I did without any kind of rhyme or reason. It paid the bills for a while, made a couple placements here and there, had some clients in significant positions of authority that gave me business that I had earned, but it was also like convenient, So I cobbled that together, and my eldest won 3 state championship volleyball rings, and my middle child won a club champion, the best 14-year club team in the country. We won that in Texas, and had a national anthem celebration. I mean, it was cool. I did a lot of traveling, and I dug deep. I was living life with my kids. We were stuck at the hip, So, and my son was with his mother at the time, and he told me, we said, come on, because the girls left almost immediately after the divorce, because it was just argument and everything's dad's fault and dad's an asshole, and like the kids don't want to hear that stuff, you know.
No.
So they came with me, but my son stayed with her, and he said to me one day, I said, why don't you come on over, dude? It's all over. He said, Dad, Mom says if I leave, she's gonna kill her. I'm like, wonderful, that's lovely. So that was tangled with her, and he was probably the most damaged from the whole experience, because the girls were with me and they didn't talk to their mother for 10 years, literally not once in 10 years, birthdays, Christmases. And then he got into drugs, and we Baker acted him. And my eldest daughter said to me, I don't think he's going to be able to overcome this, Dad, if mommy's not part of it. And I said, oh, I think that's a very courageous thing for you to say. And she said, well, I'm going to call her. And the day he got out of his initial rehab, which God bless us all has been successful, knock on wood, his mother was standing there with his two sisters for the first time in 10 years. And it was I was off in my car because my presence in her sphere does not sit well to this day. But it was a really miraculous thing that happened, a very courageous move on my eldest daughter's, and my son's doing well to this day. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah.
I want to kind of tie things up. You mentioned a little bit about what you do. I feel like when people become parents, sometimes they love their job, but it shifts. There's something in most people that really shifts when you become a parent. It changes who you are. I think experiencing a love like you've never felt, and a shift in priority, and knowing like you really are not the center of the world. As a matter of fact, someone else is the center of your world. I think people really, really change a lot. And I also know a lot of moms who feel a little lost, probably dads too. I work with moms more, but they feel like they've given up their identity to be a parent for a while. And you do consultations for all of that, whether it's a new career, doing their own thing. And I love that, because I also think something else that's born when your kids are born is this ability to see things differently and find a need, help a need, serve a need. A lot of women could really start their own businesses if they realize that they could really start their own businesses. Even fear of losing your job, or not wanting to do what you want to do, or anxious about your own small business and wanting to move that forward. And like, you kind of help with the gamut. When I read it, I was like, I mean, I love what I'm doing. I'm so grateful. But you see things from a different perspective. So even someone like me, who's I am living what I love, you could even help in that situation. So I want to wrap up with like that shameless self-promotion of what you do, and all these parents out there who are kind of at a loss.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking of one colleague, a guy that I've helped. He's probably closing in on late 30s now, but I've helped him. I'm a Notre Dame guy, and he was a Notre Dame guy too, many years younger than I. But he actually befriended my dad at Costco like 20 years ago. They bumped into each other, and my father mentioned to him what I do, and he said, boy, I'd like to talk to Mark. And that became a relationship that's withstood 10 plus years. I've helped him 4 or 5 different times. Every time he comes to a crossroads in his career, he picks up the phone and we talk. And so, yeah, it's a my challenge, Jen, is that I can help everyone, but as you well know, you can't market to everyone. It just doesn't work. And so I've been really wrestling with this. I love helping young people. I love helping middle-aged men. I love helping entrepreneurs of any race, gender, religion, doesn't matter. People that have entrepreneurial aspirations, I can help them just wrap their arms around what that means. And because more than anything, it's just I've had a lot of experience and have had the opportunity to fail a lot and make a lot of mistakes, which are always learning experiences. So I can take somebody, I can see where they're going at, 5-10 minutes into a conversation. I'm like, I know exactly what your challenge is. Let me tell you how I can help you. And this is what that's going to look like. And what I'm trying to do with that is turn it into a productized offering so I can scale it, where
Yeah.
I'll be involved in some one-on-one conversations over the course of, say, a 6 period of time. Have milestones in place. We'll meet once a week for an hour. The group will get together, maybe 5 or 10 people in a group at a time. There'll be a community component that people can learn from each other. And I just basically take people from what's often a place of a multitude of negative emotions, right? Fear, anxiety, uncertainty, lack of confidence. Most of those things come from a lack of information, from a lack of answers. And I've got those answers in, I hesitate to say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And so most people just need to get out of their own way. Most people just need someone else to help them get out of their own way. And it's interesting as well how many restrictions we put on ourselves. Like, I can't do that. You can do anything you want, right? You can do anything you want if you're willing to put in the work. But in order to get past that initial block, having somebody who's already done that is really helpful. It's we also seem to have a hesitancy with asking for help from other people. Some of us have a real difficult time asking for help, and you got to ask for help. Everybody can use help. I was just watching, looking at an email today from a woman who's significantly into the multi-millions in online marketing success. And she's just hired another coach, and she flipped the business that she had it completely upside down, and it tripled her revenue. So it's like, that's the challenge. I can help everybody, but I can't market to everybody. So I'm figuring that out while I'm developing this product. I've written so much content that the product is pretty much there. I just have to put some structure around it and give it some teeth, like with quizzes and certificates and exams. And it's 85% done. But in the meantime, I can help people by getting on my calendar for 30 minutes. I give that free 30-minute call because I think it's fair. I can really figure out very quickly whether I can help you, and then I can tell you how I think I can help you. And then the clock starts ticking if you want further information from further guidance. But I don't think I've ever spent more than 3 hours with somebody before I got them, out of their own way and off to the races. And some people come back 6 months later, 12 months later for a refresher, or just to bounce some circumstances off of me, that kind of thing. But I'm trying to figure that out so I can scale it, so I can get it out to more people.
I love that. Mark, thank you so much for being on and for sharing your story. I'm really grateful to have had you on.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to have been on. It was a pleasure, Jen. I really have enjoyed talking to you.